Welcome back. This is our 11 a.m. session for our business meeting for Monday, March 20th. We'll be hearing a report from Building and Planning, Facilities Maintenance, Public Works. That will be open for some miscellaneous items as well. So, Mr. Moss, welcome this morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mike Moss, Public Services Director. A little light agenda today. I'm sure you guys might have a few miscellaneous items for us, but we'll turn it over to Tracy Jackson, the Director of Building and Planning, to go over her items to start with.
All right. Welcome, stranger.
Hello, strangers. Tracy Jackson, Director of Building and Planning. So I wanted to bring up our new senior planner. Come on up. This is Wayne Nelson. He is our new exciting employee that we've got with us. I'm excited that he's with us. He's been, he was here 27 years ago. Spent a couple years with us, went to Skamania County, and then has been consulting in the north area of us, all in Washington State for last 25 years. And so we're blessed that he's with us and he's hit the ground running and a good ally for us to have within our department. So I'm very excited, and I just wanted him to come up and meet the board and just put faces with names and vice versa. So yeah.
Super. Wayne, welcome aboard. I'm sure you recognize that nothing has changed in this room. It's exactly the same, except for the pictures. Two of the pictures have changed. But, other than that, glad to have you. And undoubtedly, you've already been confused with the other Wayne Nelson. Yeah.
Years ago.
Yep.
Yeah,
It is. Good to have you.
welcome. Thank you.
So the next thing on my list is
Wait,
to,
Tracy, before you go on.
Yes.
Just wanted to recognize and honor that despite your best efforts, one thing that is constant is change, and you're looking for new personnel again, or
Maybe.
analyzing it. You've mentioned it.
I'm analyzing it. My planning manager has resigned her position, so I'm analyzing what the needs are of the department before I come forward and just say, we need this. I want to make sure I know what some of our deficiencies are, and I'd like to improve on those. And I'm looking to find people's strengths and put them where their strengths are, and then ask for the need of what we don't have if there is a need. So I want to take a moment, step back, and make sure that when I come forward, it's a legit request, and I'm not going to add staff just to add staff. It needs to be the right organization. So.
And as we head into the construction season, timeliness becomes even more critical, I think, for our
It does.
clients.
And that is my focus, is getting the permits out, especially the planning side at this point. So that is my utmost focus. And so that's where my, the kind of like tunnel vision right now is to getting the planning permits out. But
And last but not least, I do want to bring you greetings from the Alexanders. I
Nice, thank you.
appreciated the service that was provided.
thank you.
Mhm.
The little strides we can make along the way is what matters. So thank you very much for that.
All right.
So tomorrow on your agenda on the consent is the True Point contract. That's our third party Acela contract. We already have them in place working. They have been phenomenal to work with. We're getting instant responses. This morning we were on just for a quick update and some workflow process changes, and they're already moving forward, making those changes since I've been up here with you gentlemen. So we have kind of gone leaps and bounds from where we were with the last group. So I'm excited to have True Point partnering with us. And EHU is also utilizing our contract with True Point to get some of their workflow processes and reporting done. So we've got a lot, like I said, a lot to go, but we're getting there.
Great.
Yep.
Any questions on that?
The usual question. So I'm one of your clients, hypothetically. How will I know that True Point has added value to my life?
You will get, if we get the processes that we're talking about moving forward, we're going to get some workflow to where you get some correspondence that you're not currently getting. Unless we physically push it to you. We're going to work on the workflow process. We've changed the front screen, and it's user friendly. You can use it from your phone, instead of just, you have to be on a laptop or a home computer to make it work. you can use just the front screen, which the wrap was changed before or from before, so we could not utilize the mobile ability. We don't need an app, but we could never use the phones before, so we're making it more user friendly.
Okay, and hopefully, in all this, we'll still, if we can, apply the fact that we own the data and we'd like to have access to the data, even though it doesn't go through Excel, I'll say, because Excel may go away or you
Right.
may want it to go away. We don't want the data to go away with them.
Correct. That's correct. And we do own this data, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Great.
And the last thing I have on my agenda is the nuisance abatement update. So I'm going to turn it over to Travis and let him
Super.
go through what he's got. Yep. Do you want here, over here? You know?
Sure.
Travis Kephart, nuisance abatement coordinator here. A lot going on. We've transferred from kind of hard copies of files, and I've transferred them into making files on our network, so they're accessible. And it's a lot easier for me to track versus going in a filing cabinet all the time. That being said, I just have a few numbers that I printed out for closed cases. Roughly 51.72% have been closed out. That's 75 cases. There is a few that have not been entered and mapped into our new system, so that number will change. And they are some older ones that are lower priority that I haven't inputted, had that input on our mapping system. A lot of these, if you go and start digging through, could be an old grading violation from 2012, which at this point in time, when you go to look for a driveway that was graded, it's probably gonna be overgrown and who knows what else, and could have changed ownership 2 or 3 different times. So those ones, as time allows, I'm mapping them. I still make a file. It's a little bit time consuming, but the hard part for the most part has been done with all the files being electronically. And as I do them in the closeout, I put them in our filing, I don't know what you call them, the big doors by the conference room that electric slide in and out. I'm just putting them all together. That way, down the road, if something were to happen, we still have the hard files on file. So right now, that's kind of where we're at. There's a couple cases that are open. I know you guys had mentioned the marijuana facility last time. We did an inspection there. A letter certified and regular was sent out. It was returned. I did a hand delivery. It's in the waiting period right now. It's probably got 6 or 7 days left on that waiting period. We'll see if we get a response, and then we'll take the next step from there. And there's another one with running water. We've had an issue with, they cut the meter. So they didn't have running water. We put a non-occupancy there. I've spoken with the sheriff. He was just out there. According to the people that live there, they said they have a running well. It's never been metered. So I have to get with EHU and see if that is true. And that was in my email this morning. So I'll be doing a little investigation on that, on if they have running water.
Where about is that? What?
3967 Spirit Lake Highway.
Spirit
I had
Lake?
2 of them there, 3967 and 3929, I believe. That one's closed. It was same scenario, didn't have running water. Spoke with the owner. They had an older gentleman living there, old military veteran. He'd come in, gave him 60 days, and the owner and him worked together. They got him a travel trailer and a spot at a place, and that place is vacant now, and they're gonna tear it down. When the time comes, I made sure I let them know to get a demolition permit. So some success, and some are still in the works. So a lot of them are a little more time consuming than the others.
Great. Super. Thanks.
How do you get involved? Somebody like, that's pretty obvious, the meter, all of a sudden there's no water there. I get that, but when somebody's doing something that's not permitted or doing it in the wrong way, how do you get notified? Is it neighbors or anybody?
It
just
varies.
varies?
Yes, sometimes it's a phone call, but majority of them are a neighbor. There's usually, if you do a little bit of digging. There's usually some kind of civil issue that they've had before and they're, you know, they, but yeah, it's usually a close neighbor, like the running water. That was actually a phone call from Public Works. They locked it, they cut the locks off. So that's how that one came to my attention, but it's hit and miss. It varies. It's usually somebody right close within the vicinity. And we do have a lot of civil stuff that comes in this morning, you know, property line disputes, that type of thing. It's not,
Yeah.
that's not on me, but yeah, we get a little bit of everything. I've had chicken nuisances to dogs to all, you name it. So, but yeah, it's usually, somebody comes in and we have a form that they fill out, a request for investigation. Usually almost every one of them, unless it was like a public utilities, if a customer calls me or emails me, I send them a request for investigation form. So they fill it out, and that way I have a copy of what the actual complaint is, the correct address, and it's known as a legitimate complaint, not that I'm out there looking around for something. So that way I have paper on it that shows that somebody actually did come in and file a complaint.
And we have, I know I referred to, I think it's Andrea.
Yep.
Yeah, she does environmental stuff like piling up cars and that type of stuff.
Correct.
And you're more building type violations.
Correct. I work
So-
with Andrea a lot on the EHU side. They do the solid waste, junk vehicles. A hot topic lately has been, that I've been working on is illegal RV parks. So we all know that there's a housing shortage and the homeless stuff. So people are camping on, I don't know if they're allowing them, some are, some aren't. So you get, you know, 4 or 5 RVs on a parcel, you know, and then the neighbor gives a call because, you know, you got people wandering all over. So that's kind of been a important one lately, and getting a lot of complaints on those. And there's one out Merwin Village Road that the lady is actually charging $900 a pop, and no permitting, no SEPA, nothing, which is our requirements on RV parks. So I've spoken with her, and I'm in the process with working with her as well. So that's kind of an important one that seems to keep popping up. But I think it's going to continue with our housing shortage unless we get that eventually under control.
Right.
Yeah, actually, I probably have a lot of questions, which means I don't understand something. You did use the word metering with respect to well. That's a pretty delicate topic in itself. What did you mean by that?
On what?
You said well has never been metered.
Correct. So they had a well, it was contaminated. I was under the impression that they were taking water from a neighbor. So they put a lock on it. They illegally went into the neighbor's meter. I talked to Public Works to see if they had gotten their own meter because their well was initially contaminated, to see if they had running water.
I need this to be clearer. If I have that thing, a hole in the ground, I don't need a meter.
If you have a well and
Yes.
it's contaminated, I don't know on the public utilities side of it on what they require, but for what I know is when I initially got the complaint that there was a meter and that they should have a meter if they're going to get public water.
So they were
Correct.
getting water from the Toutle River water system.
Correct. I don't know if that's the water system, but those,
Okay, so there's a parallel water system. The neighbor had access to our water utility. That was what's supposed to be metered.
Right, I
Yes.
understand that. I understand that possibility. I just want to be sure that the public at least recognizes that we put together a fairly detailed priority document quite some time ago as to what would constitute violations that we would pursue.
Yep.
Because we don't want to be in the business of having you going into somebody's property to find a problem. The problem has to find you.
correct.
And I want to be sure that in this case, it wasn't, you know, whether their well is contaminated or not, How would you know that?
I don't know that. That's what the EHU would know that. They do the sampling and that, and you need running water to be occupied, a home.
Right. Listen carefully. I don't want us to be involved in going to somebody's house and saying, let me sample your well water.
No.
Okay, so anything that originates from that to me is not the right way we should spend our.
I
resources.
haven't been to the parcel, myself. I've just called public utilities to see if they had running water into the system there, due to the fact that they were taking water from.
Yeah, I don't want to argue with you about the details. I want to suggest that your concentration should be on formal complaints.
Correct, which it was.
Yeah, and you end up with a full-time and a half job trying to do that anyhow. Okay, I mentioned that there was this priority matrix, the document.
Yeah, I have it. It's-
You've got it.
Yeah, it was in 2018. I was actually gonna bring it up because I don't know if Rick's seen it. It might be worth something having you guys look back over it. Like the marijuana retail, where's that fit on the list? Those are oddball ones that may not have been an issue back in 2018. And then so I go by our priority list that I believe, I'm assuming you two were involved in the initial one.
Yes.
But so I try to go by that list that you guys put together. And most of those are, you have a building section, a planning section, high priority. There's, for instance, grading is low on there. I've had, stuff come from Department of Ecology, and I get the state agencies give it a little bit higher, but if you just went by the grading, it would be low, but they're in, a class 1 stream on the Lewis River, or they're doing a logging on the Lewis River. Doesn't have anything to do with occupancy, but a state has referred it to me, and, it becomes higher priority at that point based on the list. I think the few things have changed since 2018. Like I said, the marijuana retail, that's kind of an oddball one. I haven't specifically received one complaint about one, but it's according to the trickle down that gets to me, it's a high priority. So I need to have clarification on, better transfer of information to myself. Since I'm the one dealing with them, we need to be, have transparency from up here to down there based on the priority list. So I'm on the same page as you guys.
Yeah, I'm probably use the term oddball or odd, and I'm certainly going to be in that regime myself. I don't think one of the nice things about humans is that they can decide what is really correct or not, just because it may or may not be in the manual. We can, and we are often requested to put in every circumstance. No, judge, I'm not guilty of murder because the law didn't say that after eating Twinkies, I couldn't shoot somebody. I mean, we don't want to get ridiculous.
Yeah.
The priority thing is to give you a guideline there. I think this board has been interested in the past on how we treat fairly across the board. If there's a marijuana facility that is a scofflaw and other ones that are obeying the law, we've got to do something about that.
Right.
Okay, so that's not as if there isn't a complainant.
Yeah, like I said, going on the priority list, it's vague, it talks about protecting public health and safety, right? So going back to the well issue or the public water, that is a concern with health and safety. And that to me is a high priority. It was a building inspector already put a no occupancy on that building due to no running water. So I have just called public utilities to see if they've had, I don't go out there and start wandering around on their property looking for a well. I don't even know a location of it, but I do ask EHU, hey, do you guys know if there's a working well on there? Has it been contaminated? Is it not running? That way, if they say, oh yeah, they came in, they dug a new well, cool, case closed, got running water. But it's hard when you just got to make some phone calls or send a letter with communication with things like that, because you don't want to go wandering around on somebody's property, like you said. I actually had an email from a sheriff that was out there, and he saw the sign of no occupancy, and there was people there. They're getting reported pretty much weekly by the neighbors, apparently illegal activity or whatever. I don't know if it's noises with nuisance that way, but the sheriff has been called multiple times out there. So he reached out to me wanting to know if he knew they had running water, because they told him that they had a running well that had water. So I just reached out to see maybe we could close the case. Maybe they got it fixed.
Yeah,
They're
I-
working.
I can't say it any clearer. I'm not here to tell someone
Yeah.
how to live.
Yeah, I agree.
And hopefully, our program for, bringing a compliance officer on board is within those bounds. I know I didn't vote to bring a compliance officer on board, believing that he would go along and tell someone you cannot live here because there's no potable water. To me, that's a different issue. But enough been said, and we'll have to probably talk again. Excuse me.
We can look at bringing that list of priority list back the next time we bring code enforcement or nuisance abatement back to the board, and just see if there's any tweaks the board is.
Copies. I just sit crap them. when they
Yeah,
came out. There's-
and we can workshop that with you and bring that back and see if that's something that the board wants to, tweak the order, or if something has risen to the top, or if there are other issues that we need to add. Absolutely.
Well, I do want to thank you for the work that you're doing, because we haven't had somebody doing the follow-up calls and kind of coordinating the interagency activities. So, I appreciate what you're doing. We have some certain sensitive areas that,
Yep.
obviously we
Get it.
have the conversation about, but I do appreciate the fact.
Well, I
that-
hope you guys have gotten less calls and they're directed to me, but I don't, I know a lot of people want to go start at the top, right? So
Well,
I hopefully you guys get a few less calls.
Well, that was
that
gonna
part
be,
of it is true. We have been.
that was gonna be my other question. When we get a complaint of some kind, we should forward it to you.
Direct it to me, yeah.
And one of the things that I'm sensitive of is people who feel it's okay to throw trash all over the place. And then there are people who just dump their trash. And that's been an issue where I know I've talked to the EHU on this, and I realize, or at least I think the value of a compliance officer is to make those scofflaws, clean it up and pay for it if possible. One, I would like to see more pressure on that, and we had talked about in certain areas putting a camera up or something like that. But I know I've gone walking and I find a pile of somebody's garbage, and it's got a name. They've got some of their old phone bills or something like that. And I bet nothing's ever happened to those people. I would like them to be crucified.
That's
I-
stuff that environmental health does.
Yeah, they deal with the garbage complaints
Yep.
and that, but I try to work with Andrea because, sometimes there's violations of, solid waste and possible building, unpermitted things, and but I try to coordinate with Andrea, but they do most of the junk vehicles, and solid waste. But I'm an avid outdoorsman, and I know I do a lot of walking and hiking in the gates, and that's a common place where people like to dump their garbage. And I'm with you. It's definitely a problem we've had for years.
Right, so you're saying that's a totally independent EHU function from the compliance officer.
The solid waste piece of it, yes. And then Andrea does go after the, when they find names in the garbage cans, they do contact the owners or residents of that garbage bag and try to get some resolution, and they can go after them code violations for the dumping of the garbage. We focus ours more on the building and planning type regulations and what it affects for the building side of it, but they do, Travis and Andrea work hand in hand to kind of like tag team a lot of, because they are multiple violations that hit every department countywide.
Yeah, if they work hand in hand, that's.
They do, they
really
work
all I ask
fantastic
for.
together. Yep.
And if Travis can flex a little muscle with some of these people, that would be a good thing.
Flex
I'm
it
getting
up,
older and the
Travis.
muscle's going away. I'm sorry.
And Okay, well, enough at the moment, I think.
So Travis, one thing to keep in mind as you're gaining more and more experience, if there are holes in the rules and guidelines where people are repeatedly violating and getting away with it because, you know, there's
Yep.
confusion in the codes particularly. Don't hesitate to make recommendations. We need to fix this part of the legislation.
Okay,
if
that
if
is
that's a possible
good to know
solution.
because there is, as I go, things pop up all the time. Because my first thing I ask when somebody comes to the counter, or I don't ask them, but when they fill it out, I let them know I have to look and see if it's a code violation. I do feel there is a lot within the RVs and that junk vehicles. There is a little bit of gray area and interpretation on, you know, maybe they want to say they're a collector of old vehicles. Well, what does the code say? So then you start getting into these, you know, we have the descriptions and the meanings of the words. And then I do feel that there's a lot of them you could twist or turn several different ways legally to, you know, get away with things, or vice versa. Maybe it's not a violation and just not worded properly or clear enough.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm bothered that we even have to go that route because there are people out there who will circumvent anything and you will just end up having to, like you go to the airport, you better take your shoes off. Why? Because one bozo decided he was going to do something with that. We might as well make the laws so constrained and so detailed that people can't get out of bed.
Black and white. Right?
And so I'm saying that's not a society I think people want. That's certainly not a society I would want. Common sense is what should be there. And the more detail we put in there,
Yep.
it's like, well, yeah, but we did cross the state line, so it's okay. No, it's not okay.
Yeah, with just real quick, I know it's probably taking forever, but on the RV one, I'm working with a gentleman right now. He had 5 of them on his property. I don't go on around, I don't know if they're occupied or not, but I talked with Andrea because she's actually been here a while and pretty knowledgeable. And I was under the understanding, well, I think if they have more than one, then it's technically an illegal RV park. Well, then we started talking about, well, does it need to be occupied or not? And those are the little things that get, you know, caught up in the mix there that they could get twisted around. But yeah, that was just one little thing that we had a discussion one day and we're like, do they need occupied or not? And then you go start digging into the code and you're trying to find the word occupied or not, or, you know, the exemptions, and it gets pretty deep. But there definitely is, in my opinion, a lot of the code that I like you're saying, should be narrowed right down to it versus so vague in some aspects, especially on common complaints that we get.
As
I was
is
saying
so
it should be
often.
vague, not the other way around.
Well, I think that they need to be where you can't just make up what you want to hear, or in your defense where they're really, I mean, like we have laws. Why have a code if we're not gonna abide by it at all? I mean, we must just do a free for all.
Yeah, my issue there is like, we have a constitution. Let's just
Correct.
violate it and ignore it.
Yeah.
Which is the way, I mean, if we allow people to play with the law, then there isn't enough ink around to close all those loopholes. It's really all I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So the challenge is it's always a balancing act. If the law is too vague, it's not worth,
Yep.
you know, it's not worth anything. But you also don't want draconian measures. So and that's more our task, is to make sure that it's the right balance.
You know, and
that
like on
it's-
my end, if I got a neighbor that's complaining about, you know, the neighbor next door with RVs and stuff, so you know, there's a side of each, you know, and you're in the middle, and at some point you have to say, okay, common sense, or what is the code? The code specifically says right here that you can have X amount or whatever, but you know, there's always two sides on the fence. So that's where you're saying the balancing act, it's continuous. It never ends.
I think some of the more difficult challenges are when we have neighbors who have conflicting reasons on why they moved to the country.
Yeah.
Peace and quiet,
Yep.
or I can do anything I want, that
Yeah,
freedom,
and everybody,
and that's that.
and
it's
the stuff
difficult
that
to
used to be country is not really country anymore with the influx of people. So,
They wanted to live in the city of Longview, they'd live in the city of Longview.
Thank you,
Never mind,
commissioners.
anyway.
Appreciate your time this morning.
Yep.
We'll bring back the guidelines next time, and we'll go over those. Yep,
yeah, that'd be good.
perfect.
Sounds good.
Thanks,
Thanks.
guys.
Great, thank you.
We'll turn our focus to the jail HVAC units. We went out to bid last year. The sheet I gave you shows the winning bid. I highlighted J.H. Kelly at right around $594,000 as a winning bid, lowest bid. Alternate one, a heat recovery coil replacement it's like a heat exchanger for the units. Their bid was $305,000 for it. We're here today, kind of tell you, thank you to J.H. Kelly. They found units that had that heat exchanger, heat alternate coils built into their units. And instead of being $305,000, it was $20,370. So we gave them the green light to move forward on that. So they've been ordered that way, but they saved us a lot of money by going with these other units. So it'll be included in our final pricing with J.H. Kelly. That's a replacement that's happening this summer. It sounds like our maintenance crews are there almost weekly, if not daily, resetting that system over there. And so I know we want to get it in place before summer, but my guess is probably going to be more of like a August completion date. So we're going to have to deal with some HVAC unit issues in the HOJ, or not HOJ, but the jail over the summer months, which we're not happy to do, but unfortunately that's just the nature of the beast. It took a while for these units to get shipped to us. So it's just a supply issue right now.
Mike, I'm looking at the sheet you just gave
Yeah.
me, and Apex has the lowest number. And I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, it was since J.H. Kelly actually won the bid itself at $594.
Okay.
They were the ones that were also able to give us the alternate one. It was one bid, one.
So this
contract.
is an element of the overall project.
Correct. Yes, it
Okay,
is. Yep.
okay. So-
And so, like I said, they came in with it's nice to have a great local company, look out for our taxpayer dollars and said, hey, we can get that unit built in for $20,000 instead of the additional $300,000, which they did some more research into what we're looking for over there. So, if we're going to go to alternate one and pay the 305, they actually save us a little over $280,000. So we thank J.H. Kelly for researching that a little bit more with our team and coming with another plan that saved us a lot of money, which helps our CIP funding.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just to make sure I understand you're saying that you're gonna go for the 305,000.
Well, we're going to go with alternate one, which was 305, but J.H. Kelly found it for $20,370 because they found a built-in unit rather than being a separate unit altogether for the heat exchanger. So that number's not on there. I just gave you the bid sheets that came in on September 27th and how high those bids were for alternate one. But when J.H. Kelly research it came back to us, it was $20,370 plus tax is what they found the units to have that exact same alternate built into it rather than being a separate unit on the rooftop.
So they're gonna be able to do all this for a little over 600,000.
Yep. Yeah, the
where
new
other
numbers.
one would be just about $1 million.
Yeah, the new number is now 617 instead of, $900,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that question may,
Questions?
that question may come up on.
I still don't follow it. So we're doing, the total cost you said is 600 and something. That's because we're doing both the base bid and the alternate one?
Correct. Yeah, we did base bid and the alternate was gonna be another 300, so the total was gonna be close to $900,000. But J.H. Kelly said, hey, we got the base bid of $593, but we found the alternate, number one, we found it for $20,000 instead of 305 once we did more research. So we said, go ahead and order those units with that built in. So instead of being $900,000, it's gonna be $600,000.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I always get confused when the discrepancies in the numbers are so big. It's like, who's falling down on the job?
That's a good question, because when we got the specs back from the architect, they built it that way as base and alternate.
Yeah,
And once we had, I think maybe, and it's gonna slam our old architect, but once you get someone that's in the business like J.H. Kelly who does this, and they bid it that way initially because that's what our specs said. And but then they looked at it and said, when they're ordering, going, gosh, probably their vendors were saying, why are you guys getting 2 units? We have units that have that all built together, and we can do it for 20 grand more rather than $300,000 more. And we said, oh, that's really smart. Go ahead and order it that way. And
Okay.
so I don't want to blame back on the architect, but that's probably where it started at, is because they built the specs of how this should be bidded out.
no, that's totally believable, and I understand that. It makes me both optimistic and very pessimistic. J.H. Kelly's a good outfit, so I mean, that's.
Yeah.
So, the reason we went this way initially was because J.H. Kelly had to respond compliant to the RFP.
Correct.
And then once that was accepted, then they could come back to us and negotiate.
Correct.
Okay, I think I have the full picture.
Sorry to confuse you.
Well, it's, the bureaucracy is gonna kill us, and this is another example of it.
I agree. All right.
Any other questions?
And the last item we have, Susan's not here with us today, is no parking zones. She's been working on these for a while. There's really 2 of them that she's really been working with the sheriff's office. I can't tell you exactly where it's located at, but she's had some items from the sheriff's office where they want no parking zone. But the other one we've been pinged on just recently, well, it started last year, but they really want some movement on, is the Port of Longview over on International Way. We're trying to get a no parking zone. They've asked for some timelines. She's reached out to them saying the second quarter of this year, she's going to have the public hearings in place. But they also announced that they might be visiting with you guys to make sure we're moving forward with that. So it's mainly FYI today to tell you guys we are moving forward. Public hearings will be established next quarter, and we'll get those no parking zones established. So if you hear from a port commissioner, I just want to make sure you guys are aware that we are working on that. And the last time we have is miscellaneous. It's just a reminder. It's on the agenda for this week, but Darren Ullman asked to come to front of you guys on Wednesday, March 22nd at 1:30. He'll have a small PowerPoint. It's like 6 or 7 slides just to talk about what he's doing there at the Humane Society, what changes he wants to make, what the budgets look like, how many the calls they go out on for the cities compared to the county. The contract was up December 31st of this last year. He does have a new contract that he's hand delivered to myself. Does have a 10% increase in that contract. It's the same for us as the cities all got a 10% increase. I believe certain cities have already passed that or signed that contract. I think 1 or 2 cities are still waiting to decide what their council is going to do with that contract. So he'd like to present to you guys on Wednesday. So I just want to make sure you guys are aware, and he'll be here. And he might bring a board member with him also.
All right, any other questions? I did have something under miscellaneous that I wanted to bring up. Earlier in the morning session, our finance director mentioned about a budget amendment that's coming up next week. And included in that budget amendment is a provision for a new fund to be established to receive funds from the lawsuits the state of Washington won against opioid manufacturers. We talked about that part several months ago, but recently we've been informed that other lawsuits against retailers have also been settled, and that we need to sign off on those agreements as well. There's probably a half a dozen retailers that are going to send money our way. So I guess I want to make sure we have on the record that you're okay with us signing off on those additional monies coming into us to compensate for the damage that opioid addiction has caused in our public. And then we can, go ahead and process that. I also want to let you know that there is another requirement in all of the lawsuits that our expenditures have to be reviewed by an oversight committee, council. And there's one suggestion that we use the Accountable Communities of Health, which for our region includes the Great Rivers, 5 counties, and Thurston and Mason County. It is an agency that is not made up of government officials, not connected with the government. It's owned by a health deliveries company. Those of us on the Great Rivers Behavioral Health Board, all county commissioners, have asked the BHO to explore whether that agency, which is under local government control, could serve as that council. And so they're going to be delivering that report in April at our next meeting. We've had a preliminary finding from our own council that we could indeed, the BHO could indeed be that review commission. But that'll be an issue coming up a little bit later, but the one there's a deadline coming up is whether we're okay signing off on the settlement. That also means the sign off includes, we promise not to sue them again. So that's why I just want to touch base with you and make sure you're okay with it.
Right, I've got a trail of umpteen emails. And which one, I would like to sign. Which one do I respond? It's a DocuSign. of course.
So apparently this is something that the board the chair is supposed to sign off on. There's a portal. And I've
Oh,
been
it's not all 3?
No, it's not all 3. Which is why I want to make sure that you're okay with me signing
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Doesn't have anything to do with public services, except that you have to deal with people who are addicted. So those drivers don't pass those tests, right?
Explain that, I missed it.
Oh, well, this is the public services portion, but opioid addiction really is not,
Oh,
it doesn't really, it's not
you're
germane
doing
to
doing-
public services other than they can't get drivers.
you're being opportunistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, no,
Good.
I forgot to bring it up the first hour, to be honest. All right.
But
Is there-
that's where we are doing the right thing. Bureaucracy shouldn't control us
That's right.
to do business.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to bring up to our attention? All right, we will adjourn this session. The next meeting of the board is tomorrow. If you haven't noticed on the calendars, I am attending a workshop for the collaborative. It's a 2-day workshop. It's our first ever workshop. So I'll be gone tomorrow and the next day, but so I won't see you again until maybe Thursday if we cross paths. So. All right. Having said that, any other comments? No hands up? All right. We will adjourn for today. Thank you.